Welcome to the Chicago Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by Cobblestone Realty, where each and every week we bring to you advice on buying, selling, or investing in real estate. Tune in every week to hear what is going on in the market right now and for interviews with the professionals you didn't know you need to know, like inspectors, insurance agents, appraisers, contractors, lenders, and attorneys.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode number 7 of the Chicago Real Estate Podcast. This is your host, Ricardo Rodriguez. I'm a realtor and owner here at Cobblestone Realty. And for today's episode, I sat down with Johanna Diaz of Credit RX, a credit consulting company that has helped thousands of people go from bad credit to homeownership in the last few years, and the first credit consulting company to ever be recognized by Top Agent magazine. In this episode, she shares the best ways to establish, repair, or boost your credit. We also talk about how to avoid damaging your credit when going through a hardship and what not to do when you're in the process of buying a home. So, let's get started. I wanted to talk to you because one of the biggest things that stops a lot of people from buying a home is actually their credit.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk to you about, different aspects of either restoring credit, building credit, improving your credit. If you're like maybe at a 680 and you want to go to like a 720 to get a better rate, like what are some of the things that you can do? So we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I wanted to ask you, what is Credit RX and how did the idea come about?
Okay, so I was in banking for about 6 years. And one of the things that I always didn't like was that clients will come to get car loans or credit cards or mortgages. And the main thing, like you said in the beginning of the conversation, is that that's one of the things that deters the clients the most, the credit situation. And the problem is that we don't have enough tools to tell the client as a bank manager at that time, you don't have enough tools to give the client to say, okay, we'll do this, do that, or go with this person, go with this other person. We're kind of just more like next, if you can't buy, then just next, and then you don't necessarily fix the problem, and the person gets, goes away with still needing to purchase something, but without the tools.
Right.
So I always thought about that. And then, we actually went through it in our personal life. My husband and I went through some situations with our credit, and we wanted to purchase a property and we couldn't. So that's, all of those things started kind of like, encouraging me to, fix my husband's credit and to understand what the credit is about, what we need to do. As consumers, we do a lot of things that are not supposed to be done to our credit because we think we know it and we think we understand the algorithms and we know if we do this, if we pay this, if we pay that. But in reality, it's that the majority of consumers don't know that. So they end up doing things that will take them back instead of moving.
Yeah, I mean, it's also not necessarily something that's widely taught.
Yeah, normally in schools, they teach you how to manage your checking account, a savings account, maybe a little bit of investments, but credit never gets touched. Never.
Oh, no, not at all.
It's never a conversation, and it's so important. Our students are leaving, high school, going into college, getting the degrees, and then getting amazing jobs and no credit.
Not only that, but like I remember once I turned 18, it was like I was getting flooded with credit cards. I mean, this was probably like, I guess I turned 18 like around 2005, 2006. So like that's when like the crazy real estate boom was happening. So like the banks were literally giving away money. So I remember getting like a $1,500 credit card and I was 18 years old.
So it actually still happens. We had our youngest bankruptcy client that we've ever had, meaning they completed the bankruptcy and now they're reestablishing their credit. He was only 22.
Oh, wow.
So we see, we see our young people going through, having to go to bankruptcy because they don't understand. So we have like all aspects of the situation of credit, right? People that haven't had credit for a very long time, that has no, that they don't have any credit, and then now they have to establish it. I had a 75-year-old client
with no credit?
No credit. He didn't have credit for 40 years. He stopped having credit when he was 35. So now he's 75, wanting to purchase a condo or a townhouse in this matter, and he couldn't.
Like what happens at the time? Like you haven't had credit for 40 years. Does everything go away, or everything follows you for?
No, everything goes away.
At what point does
it usually
quote, unquote, everything go away?
If you don't, it varies. We had a client that had a child support for 30 years on the credit report. It was already paid, everything. So it just depends on the credit. But for this particular client, there was nothing in there. And so it's harder at that time because you're 75, you haven't had any credit for 40 years. Every time we try to get him some type of credit, we were questioned because they didn't know if this was actually the 75-year-old guy that hadn't had any credit for 40 years, if really was the person that was trying to get it. So, it could be fraudulent. So they have to be very careful with that. So it took us a little longer. So, you have clients from all types of, walks of life. We have the people that haven't had credit for a long time, and maybe the young adults that, just started doing it, or maybe just the person that went, had to go through a foreclosure or short sale. It's all over the place.
All right. So kind of to segue a little bit, what services do you guys offer?
So we offer, I will tell you as just a general answer, we do it all.
Because I know you guys have, I remember the first time I met you, you brought up and you have
it's
30 of them.
All kinds of, so we have 20.
Okay.
20 different programs. And the reason why we keep them separate is because each program does something to the person's credit. So, one example, if a client has bad credit, meaning they have charge of accounts, collections, late payments, then we are going, and it's severe, we're going to want that client to go through credit cleaning, right? Credit repair, credit cleaning. But if a person comes and doesn't have any credit, then we're going to want them to go credit establishment.
Okay.
You see? Let's say someone comes and they know exactly the bad stuff that they have in their credit. They know exactly where it's coming from. So, for instance, a father and a son sharing the same name, right? Just with the junior and senior.
Yeah.
We're not going to put this person through a whole full-blown credit cleaning program. What we're going to do is just do is detachment. Generally speaking, we have 20 official programs. However, if someone comes with a different need, we can adjust to that. And we can either develop a program that will be specifically for that person, or we might already have it. So
it's more tailored for somebody's specific needs, right? Because I guess my next question is actually what makes you guys different from other credit companies. I forget the names. What's the one that everybody
let's not
talks
mention
about?
it.
Okay, let's just actually not mention it at all. But because that's one of those things that they charge you $150 a month, and all they say is yeah, we'll repair your credit, and then they don't actually even ask you what you need or
Correct.
Why your credit is bad or none of that stuff. It's more just a blanket kind of thing.
That is exactly the difference between us and anyone in the business. And I say it very secure of myself because we're very personable. It's self-employed people when they go to the accountant and the accountant is telling them, just deduct everything that you had and, just make sure that you don't pay a lot in taxes or whatever the case may be. But they don't know what the person's goal is. So if the person's goal is to purchase a property in the next few years,
right, and they're showing zero income because they deducted everything.
They're not going to get anything. So if my clients come to my office and they say, Johanna, I would like to purchase a property in the next 3 months, then we're going to build the plan according to what the client wants. So you want to buy a property in 3 months? All right, then we have to do the most aggressive credit establishment program. We're going to pop 5 lines of credit in there, and then we're going to make sure that you build your credit fast. Now, if someone comes and tells me, Johanna, I want to purchase a property in 2 years. Okay, then we have enough time. Then we can say, all right, let's get one credit line here. Let's learn how to manage it. And then we'll move on to the next. So we're very personable. We take into consideration the client's goals, and then our plans are all worked around that goal.
That makes sense. I mean, it really makes no sense for those companies to be charging you $150 a month for a year, and I don't even know what they do. And,
touching a little bit on that too, we also want the clients to have a whole, an integral plan. So in other words, if let's say you have bad credit and lack of credit, right? If you go to a regular company, everyone is going to put you in the same bubble of credit repair. That's the $150 a month, blah, blah, blah. We don't charge that much, but let's just talk about the other companies, right? So they put you in this same bubble that they put everybody because they are charging monthly. They're filling their pockets, right? I mean, imagine, I usually worked about 380 cases a month.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So 380, and I'm very small. I'm a very small company still. So imagine these companies that are huge. They're working 1,000, 1,500, even more clients a month. They like the recurring.
Of course.
So they're not going to take into consideration because they're big. They have a huge
Because they
call
always
center.
say like, nothing is going to show up for like the first 4 months. But you've already paid $600.
Yes. And then the thing is, when we create our plans, we want the client to know it all. So let me give you an example. Let's say we have a client that has a charge of account that's very recent and then has a bunch of collections and late payments that are really old. We're going to tackle the old stuff with credit repair. And then we're going to tackle the most recent stuff through settlements. You get it? So you can't expect a client or a credit report or a credit item that is in default and is recent to be removed through credit repair. You have to be honest with the client and you have to let them know, listen,
That makes sense.
we're going to be doing this. However, we need to settle this because it's not going to go anywhere. This was just 6 months ago. So let's get it over with. You want to purchase a house in 3 months? Let's do it aggressively. And then at the same time, we're establishing. So that's 3 plans in one. When the other companies only offer credit repair because why? They want to keep the client for a year and a half and then eventually say, oh, that charge of account, let's just go ahead and settle it. It doesn't work like that. You want to do everything at the same time so that the client can move up fast.
Right. How does the process work? Like if somebody came to you, I guess we kind of already touched on this actually. Like how does the process work? Say somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm thinking of buying a home. Let's just say it's the fall of 2019. I want to buy a home in the spring of 2020. How does that process work with you guys?
Good. So we have, just to kind of give you an idea, we have 2 types of streams of clients, right? So we have the stream of client that comes from people like you, which thank you so much for trusting us all the time. But, our realtors, our lenders, our insurance agents, our bankers, our bank managers. So people that see clients face to face and they know the problems of credit problems. So we have that stream of clients coming from you guys. And then we also have a lot of social media presence. So we get a lot of our own clients that come, without a realtor, without a lender, whatever the case may be. So usually the ones that come from you guys already have a credit report with them. The ones that come by themselves, sometimes they have not pulled their credit report. So regardless of whether they have it or not, we do the same intake process. We put them through our intakers, right? And what they do is they have that initial conversation with the client. What are your needs? What do you want? Let's pull the credit, blah, blah, blah. And then once we have the credit, then we assign it to one of our credit consultants. So then the credit consultant takes over and then they create a plan and then they track the client's progress every 90 days. That's kind of like how it goes. So whether you have the credit report or you don't have the credit report, it goes through the intaker, make sure that, what is it that you need and what your goals are, pulls up the credit report, and then the credit consultant gets assigned to the case, and then, it goes from there.
Okay. Now let's move into talking a little bit more about actual credit. For someone with bad credit, what would you advise them to do, or what can they do to restore their credit? Maybe they're in the 500s or maybe high 400s.
So high 400s. So when you are lower than 600, I would say there are a lot of things that you have to do. It's not just cleaning the credit. It might be now, we've been in business for 4 years and a half. We're almost going to make it to the 5th year. Nice. So now when clients talk to us on the phone and they say, well, I'm in the 400s, we know automatically this person has bad credit and probably nothing open. So meaning no lines of credit
Because
open.
they probably went into collections for everything, and then because they have all those collections, then they haven't applied for anything or something.
Correct.
Like
or even if they have, they don't get approved.
True.
So we kind of know exactly what could be like if someone is in the 610s, we might think, okay, that's probably bad credit and maybe a couple lines open, right? And then we have the ones that are 680 that can go over the 700s. We know that it's either usage of their open lines or something that has been lingering on their credit report for a while. So if someone has bad credit, the first thing that you want to do is you want to understand what you have in there. This is why it's so crucial to have the first consultations with us, because it's free. You get the copy of your credit report, 3 scores, 3 bureaus.
Where would you suggest someone gets that report from?
Oh, different websites. Don't do Credit Karma, please.
That was actually my last question.
Oh, let's
But
talk about it
let's
right
talk
now.
about that later. You want to talk about that right now? We can talk about it right now. Like, what do you think of tools like Credit Karma and like that to monitor your credit?
And they are not necessarily monitoring your credit. Credit Karma and other platforms like that are more in the marketing business. Advertising business, every time someone clicks on something, they get paid, right? Which is freaking genius. But at the same time, the history of someone's credit report is pretty spot on. You could see what your credit history is on the spot. But if the credit score is not accurate, so you can't go by that credit score. If you go and tell someone, hey, I got a 700 because Credit Karma is telling me, lenders, lenders, realtors, they're not going to take that into consideration. Right. So to answer your questions, the question that you asked, Identity Guard is really good. Privacy Guard is good too. The individual websites, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, they're good too.
Do they all let you take one report a year? Or can you take it at any point? Because I remember there was one website that it's only like, oh yeah, you can only do this once a year.
Usually that's the freecreditscore.com or the official report. Because you could call one of the companies and say, hey, can you just send me an official credit report so you can get one copy? But that was more like back in the days, people used to think that was the only time that you could get a copy just once a year. But it's not. So the websites that I'm telling you, Identity Guard and Privacy Guard and all these other companies, they're not going to be 100% accurate. It's never going to be 100% accurate, okay? Let's just leave it, at that. However, even when you're buying a house or when you're buying a car, your scores are going to be different too, because for mortgages, they use different algorithms. For cars, they do too. So there's different scoring system that is used either for auto loan companies or mortgage companies. So it's never going to be the same. So when we do our first consultations and we pull the credit report and we tell the client, this is approximately where you are at, and we're pretty, good with the websites that we use, we still have to disclose to the client, this is not your official score. It could be very, very close to that. So to go back to that, so first you have to understand where you're at. If you have bad credit, you have to understand where you're at. What is it that is hindering you from buying a house or from, moving to the next level? And then after that, then you need to sit down with a credit consultant. Don't try to do it on your own.
You just want to deal with the professional.
You want to deal with
that's been doing it for a long time. That's
correct.
What they actually do.
Right. And then you also want to be able to check their stuff, right? So check the reviews, right? We have 5-star reviews all across the board. We have a name in the market now, right? CreditRx is a very small company, but we have been able to cover a lot of ground. So we do a lot of business with lenders, realtors. They recommend people to us. Are we perfect? No. We're not perfect, of course. Sometimes we have to get our ears pulled, by our partners and our realtors because maybe, we didn't call a client the hour that they wanted to, right? But at the end of the day, overall, we have great reviews. Clients purchase houses after our programs.
Nice.
So if they stick with the program and they do their part, you will become a homeowner. You will be able to get a car at the interest rate that you want or a credit card that you have been wanting. We have clients that come with 4 or 5 charge of accounts, no credit. And after 6 months, 7 months, whatever time it is, they're getting a Discover credit card.
Nice.
Top of the line, American Express. So
Black card.
So then you have those testimonials in our website. So check people's, the company's information. Make sure that you do your due diligence too.
So talking about lenders and purchasing a home, what are some of the scores needed to purchase a house?
Oh, that is a great question. And I love that because I always want my clients to be best. Right? So in other words, there are a lot of lenders now that are lending to clients that are in the 500s. Okay. Do I agree with that? Maybe not. I love my lenders. Okay. However, I understand that if you want someone to be successful, you want to put them in a good place, right?
You don't want to set them up for failure.
Yes. there are situations that people need to get out from where they're at, right? So I had a client that was living in a very rough neighborhood, and her kids were getting mugged every single day when they came from school. That's a client that I would say, get to the 500s and get the hell out of there, right? But once you have the house, come back to me so I can fix your credit so you can refinance and get yourself in a good loan. You get me?
Yeah.
So in some cases, I understand that. But if you can take at least 2, 3, 4 months and fix it to the 620s or 640s or even 660s, you will be in a better position. When you are doing loans, and I'm not a lender, just disclose this, right? This is just based on my experience and what I've heard from my clients and my lending partners. When you do something below the 600s, you're looking at loans that might be a little bit higher interest. You might have to have a little bit more of money. You might have to put a little bit more of down. There are things that you have to do. You might even qualify for less because now your DTI, which is debt to income ratio, is more like tight because you're a risky client, right? So instead of you being able to get a property, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, now you are just 2 bedrooms,
Smaller
1 bathroom.
home, yeah.
Smaller home, which is fine for someone who needs to get out of where they're at. But I would say when you go over the 620s, you're looking good, okay? You will look much better in the 680s, 700s. That we already know that, right? Yeah. But when you go over the 620s, you start positioning yourself in a better loan, FHA, conventional, whatever the case may be. Conventional, maybe not so much, but, FHA. But 640s, now you're able to get down payment assistance, right? 660, 680, 700s, now you're able to get good stuff, right? So, good rates, whatever the case may be. So it's all over the place, right? But to just give you one full answer will be like after the 620s will be a pretty good time for you to start thinking about home buying.
Okay. Now I want to talk about charge of accounts, collections, and judgments. Like, what is the difference between those?
Great question. So I'm gonna answer that question with an example. You have a Capital One credit card and you've been managing very well, and then all of a sudden you don't have employment anymore, right? So obviously I would tell the people that are listening to us, when hard times are coming. So if that's the case, make sure that you know all of the credit card companies that you do business with and start calling them up and let them know that you lost your job, something happened, so that they can put you in a hardship program so you don't mess up your credit.
So maybe hold your payments for like 3 months or something.
Exactly. Hardship program, you lost your job. Every single company that you work with should be able to do something for you. Some of my clients have been able to put themselves in an interest-only payment, which
nice.
is pennies, maybe a couple dollars here and there. Yes, you're not going to be paying towards the principal, but you're not going to break your.
That makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, go back to that. So you have a Capital One, you lost your job, then now you're making late payments, right? You're not making payments technically, and then late payments are getting recorded. Usually after 120 to 150 days is when that becomes a charge-off, which means they close it out with negative balance, right? Because you owe it. So after it becomes a charge-off, every single month, this is going to get recorded on the credit report as if it's negative. So for those type of accounts, I don't want you to put yourself in a payment plan. I want you to settle it.
They report it every single month?
Every single month negatively.
So it just keeps
we have situated every single time. So even if you try to do, this is why companies out there are not telling the clients, okay, so let's settle this and then we'll do credit repair here. If you don't settle that and that thing is still bothering your credit every single month, it doesn't matter how good you do in the other areas. This is still going to be kind of like leaking, right? Like a leaking roof, right? So you want to be able to settle it. So if you have a charge of account, don't make payment plans. Save up the money. Try to do a settlement, a one-time settlement, possibly for less than the full amount. So you can save some money. Now, charge of accounts can turn into collections. Those are the ones that kind of like stop reporting and they just sell it to the collection companies. Usually the collection companies here in the state of Illinois, the most that we see is Portfolio Recovery, Midland Funding. Those companies are the most the ones that we see the most on the credit report. So it could be sold to someone like that, right? Now, if they can't collect money from, the collection itself, it might turn into a judgment. And that's when you get taken to court. Now you have to put, and not only that you have to pay what you owe, but now you have to pay the lawyers and the fees that are attached to it. So if you have a judgment, it's because you technically let that creditor or the debt go for way too long before you took care of it.
Do you get served?
Yeah.
Like they actually take you to court?
Yes.
So what would your advice for somebody if that happened to them? To do a payment plan, to do a settlement? Or?
So once it's a judgment, usually judgments cannot be settled. We have had situations where we were able to settle judgments for less than the full amount. I'm talking about settlements that are less than the full amount. But usually when it's on lawyers' hands, sometimes they're just going to charge you everything. Some companies or some law firms will be able to give you a little break, but it's ridiculous. In the state of Illinois, it increases 9% a year. So don't let, I had a client that had a situation with some credit card, and I think he owed $5,000. When we were able to find out information about it, he already owed $13,000. It's a judgment. You can't purchase a house if you have an open judgment. Thankfully, the law firm that had that case was able to give us a 50% off. It's beautiful.
Twice as much as the first.
It's a little over.
Well, a little bit over.
A little, like $2,000 more than what he originally owed. But he would have had to pay the $13,000 if he wanted to purchase a house.
That's crazy.
So it's, when you have a judgment, I'm sorry, guys, but you let it go bad for too long. So when you have a charge of account, if you can't pay it immediately, have it in the back of your head. Okay, I'm going to create a budget once I have a job, and I'm going to save some money, and I'm going to put it on the side. And then once I get to have that money, I'll call the company and I'll do a settlement with them. And then make sure you get a settle for less than the full amount letter so that you can have it on your record. So send it over to the 3 credit bureaus so it could be recorded how it's supposed to be. All of what I'm telling you now is what we offer in our office. Okay. We have settlement programs. We do it in-house. We help the clients save so much money. I just put something on our social media and Facebook, CreditRx 2015, of couple scenarios of clients that had the $13,000 one that we were able to settle for about $6,500, and then the one that Carmen, shout out to Carmen, she was able to go from $8,900 to like $1,500. Nice. Something ridiculous. And so people are able to save money through our programs. Credit repair companies are supposed to save you money.
Now, what about open lines? Like how many open accounts should someone have, just in general? Can you have 5, 10,
You
15?
can have as many as you want. A couple things though. You do want to have diversity on your credit report. Okay. So if you only have a bunch of credit cards or a bunch of charge accounts or a bunch of installment loans, right? If you just have one particular type of account all across the board, then you don't have diversity. So you want to have different accounts making up your credit. It doesn't matter how many you have. What matters is how you use them.
Right. You could have 30.
I have about 20. I don't use them all.
Right.
I always keep
No,
them.
You also don't want to close them either, just because you don't use them.
Correct. You do not want to close them. I literally have like about
I might have one from like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I have one. I have a Bank of America when I turned 19. And I'm not going to tell my age right now. No, just kidding. I'm 37, so I've been having that account for a long time. I'm not 37. I'm 36, guys. I don't know why I keep saying I'm 37. I don't know.
Now, what is something that would prevent somebody from buying a home? Like, as you already said, a judgment, right? What else would prevent someone from buying a house?
So an open judgment is one of the biggest. Oh, by the way, people out there that are listening to us, credit reports no longer show judgments. Okay. This was something that the government passed. So when you pull your credit report, you cannot see if you have open judgments anymore.
So how do you find out?
So then you have to pull your public filings. I put an amazing video yesterday on my website, on my Facebook page, and it talks about exactly what it is, like public filings and public records and where they show. So if you want more information, go on Credit RX 2015 on Facebook. And the second video that I post in there, it's going to show you all the information about public filings and public records. Anyway, you don't see them anymore in the credit report. So when you do lending, make sure that you're asking your lender, hey, can you check my public filings just to make sure I'm good with the judgments, everything is clear.
I mean, if they had a judgment, they would have got served. So they
some
should
people
know.
don't. Yeah. Well,
or maybe
yes.
maybe they moved, or like maybe they weren't able to get served. I don't know.
And another, for another example like that too, is some people have had judgments in the past and they actually paid for it, but they never got the release. So it still shows as if it is pending. However, they could call the law firm and just get the release of judgment. If you have, that's why please save the receipts. Please save all the transaction histories and everything so that you don't get in a point where...
That makes sense.
Yeah. So open judgments can be a deterrent for a client to buy a house. Maybe owing a lot of money in collections. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, again, I'm not a lender, but what I've seen and what I've heard, if you owe more than $2,000 in collections, you might not get financed.
Okay. What about usage ratios? Well, I know that's got to be a little more to do with the lending side.
Yeah. Obviously, when you have a higher debt to income ratio, you might not get a loan.
So you want to stay around the 30% range,
would say,
below 30%.
Oh, and remember, when the lenders are in measuring your DTI, they're not looking at your entire debt. They're looking at how much you pay monthly. So in other words, if you have a Capital One, let's go back to Capital One. If you owe $5,000, but your required minimum payment is $40 a month, that's what they're going to take into consideration, the $40 a month. So you have to talk to a lending advisor just to see how your DTIs are. And your DTI is, however, if he tells you, okay, you got to pay off this, and that, if you want a house of this much, then just do it and then lower your DTI.
That's what we always tell people. The first step, I actually think I've done a couple episodes on this within the first episodes of the podcast, to get pre-approved before you start even looking at homes, because
oh my gosh, yes.
You don't know what you can afford
you
don't know if you haven't been pre-approved yet. So that should always be the first step. Either have your agent refer you to a lender, or find a lender and see what you get pre-approved for before you start even looking.
Yes, and then also always know how much you want to pay a month for a mortgage, and be realistic. You can't say that you want to pay $1,000 in Portage Park. Just be realistic. If you want to live in a place where, of course, rents are not even $1,000. So, just be mindful that, you have to know, and you have to know your budget. So like, if you can only budget for $1,500 a month, then who cares if they can approve you for $500,000?
Right.
You know already that as your budget, you want to set yourself up for success, not for failure. So if it's $1,500 that you can afford, then that's what you go for.
Or get a multi-unit, so you pay some of the mortgage with the rent money.
Absolutely.
I have a client right now but she actually makes $500 by living in her house.
Oh,
like, imagine actually getting paid to live somewhere.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
It's amazing. Now, for my last question, what are some not to do's with your credit when you're in the process of buying a house?
This is fantastic. So keep your usage low. Don't spend more money, right? So just stay still. Don't move too much. Don't use more of your credit cards. Don't use, just stay still. Don't rank up more debt. The other thing is no late payments. We have seen so many deals go down and just completely bad because the person, let's say the lender pulled the credit in June. Right? Mm-hmm. So let's count 2 months just to give it a one number. So August, right? They're closing. And all of a sudden the person has 1 or 2 lates. So now they went from a 680 to a 5 something, kills the deal. So make sure you keep your payments on time.
Don't late be payment can go down 100 points.
Well, you could 2 late payments might do that. And it depends on the type of account that you did late payment on. If it's a mortgage account, if it's a car loan account, if it's something like that, it might even go. I mean, we've seen horrible situations where people were already CTC, clear to close, and then all of a sudden they do that little refresh credit just to see where they're at, if they haven't done any more debt, gotten more debt or anything like that, and then all of a sudden they have some late payments. So don't make sure that your usages keep being low. Don't make any late payments. Make sure that you are paying your things on time, regardless of you being in this process. And then the third thing is, do not get in more debt. So new debt. So don't purchase a car. Don't purchase furniture before you have the house. Don't purchase things that you don't need. Stay still with your credit up until the closing date. And once you close,
You can do whatever you want after that.
oh my God, go get yourself a Lamborghini, whatever you want. But don't do it while you are in the process. So low usages, no late payments, and don't get new debt.
What about inquiries? Like, can you get maybe a credit card while you're waiting for one? Like, not at all. Nothing.
No, nothing. You should not jeopardize the process of lending. You're giving people headaches, because then now your lender has to explain why you got another inquiry. Why is this person buying something when they want?
The seller's agent too, and it's just
and then extension after extension, and then now now you're having to extend the rate lock. It's a snowball
just
effect.
Stay still for like 3 months.
Yes, just don't move.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast. Really appreciate all the great information you've given our listeners. Where can people find you?
So we have 2 locations. We do have, if the clients want face-to-face, we have 2 locations. We have one in Chicago on Cicero and Belmont. And then we have one in Aurora on Downer Place, right by the river. It's a beautiful office. Nice. And, obviously Facebook, CreditRx 2015, same thing on Instagram.
So facebook.com/CreditRx 2015.
That's correct.
Or just search CreditRx.
Just search CreditRx 2015. And then also Instagram. And of course, just anywhere, credit-rx.com.
What's your email if anybody wants to reach out to you?
So it's Johanna, which is Johanna @credit-rx.com.
You want to give out your phone number?
Yes.
Or your office phone number?
Of course, 773-647-1112.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this again. Really appreciate your time. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, Ricardo.
If you know someone that can benefit from this information, please share this episode with them. Also, don't forget to subscribe and rate us on iTunes, as that would help us reach more people. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Cobblestone Realty Shy. See you next time.